Okay, everybody, welcome to our next installment, Morning Flight. And to present, we've got a citizens activist, Dave Hanna.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Morning Flight is a sculpture by Gerald Gladstone, and I'm just interpreting it. There may be a number of meanings one could get from it. However, the theme of our tour is the environment. It's basically a geometric vortex of colorful bird forms symbolic of the fragile interdependence and sacred diversity of all life. In effect, one can look at it and sort of see a DNA helix, which is the basic form of all life that interconnects us all. And it also represents a planet that is being put at risk of diminishment due to the negative effects of climate change and loss of habitat and pollution. As we look at the sculpture, we can see that it's a very colorful sculpture. But imagine if we're going to lose our biological diversity due to climate change, that it may end up being like this, black and white. Right now we see a sculpture that's exuberant and rising to the sky and exciting. But we could also look at it as in black and white as being sucked down in negative vortexes into the tar ponds or to the forests that are disappearing in South America and even in our own country. Basically, oh, thanks. It's easier, I guess. Oh, thank you. The colorful joy of individual freedom in flight is represented here, yet an inherent intertwined ecological linkage and dependency that all species have on each other, and we do. Humans, Homo sapiens, are animals. Basically, we're all part of the life forms on Earth, but we, as a dominant species, are wrecking it not only for ourselves, but for other species as well. Humankind as a dominant species is altering nature towards a permanent negative, and that we have very little time to correct our past mistakes with new and more environmentally sound choices that respect the diversity and continuity of nature. Basically, we can look at the deformations in amphibians and birds that are not migrating south anymore, and in fact some southern birds that are going further north, as was mentioned in previous sculptures. These are all changes that are happening due to climate change, but there's other problems too, like genetically modified food. That there's an interesting article about wheat. Canada has developed these great strains of wheat, but could be problems with gluten because of these strains that we never had 150 years ago. We get more wheat and it feeds more, but is it as good a quality? And there's much more problems with GMO that go beyond that. But we see the creation of seed banks, we see the creation of perhaps even gene banks, and other forms of banks as well too. But the point being, like, why do we need these if we can just maintain and correct the problems on the Earth now, where we can just go forward as presenting and keeping the planet as it is and correcting our past mistakes. What we have to look forward to, unfortunately, right now is that we're actually reached the era of peak oil, and that's going to cause a lot of problems. So we have to look at alternate energy forms. And I hate to look at this sculpture as a negative spiral to the eventual death of this planet through our own poorly informed choices as a dominant species. That we are the asteroid this time, dragged down into a tar pond settlement basin, as with the proposed expansion of such in Alberta and all its negative ramifications. But we have a choice. We still have time to correct things. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, Dave. Thank you. And next we're going to do a sculpture on the left side of the path, which is the penguins. So just a little further. Sculpture, Penguins on a Waterfall, by our longtime member and friend, Bonnie Drago.
Hello everyone. I hope you're all enjoying the tour. Oh. Can you hold the mic? Oh, you can hold this then for a minute. Okay. My name is Bonnie Drago, and I'm here to talk about this sculpture, Penguins by a Waterfall, and how it is connected to climate change. The sculpture is cast aluminum and enamel. It was created by Yolanda Vanderkast in the year 2000. Her penguins present a playful image of strength and endurance. So how is this all connected to climate change and global warming? Well, where the emperor penguin comes from, it's in the Antarctic, and it's all about the ice. The emperor penguin is threatened by climate change, and they are at grave risk of extinction by the end of the century. This is a report by the Environment and Conservation Organization, ECHO, in June 2011. They only breed in the Antarctic winter. It's a very harsh climate, and their home is increasingly impacted by climate change, with the warmer temperatures, and most importantly is the decline and distribution of the sea ice. Ice is fundamental to their existence. The penguins breed on the fast sea ice, which forms in the winter. It's on the ice shelf. It's not part of the land. And then when the chicks are ready to leave the colony, after that, the fast ice breaks up in the summer. If there is no ice, or if the ice forms late, or if it breaks up early, that is disaster for the emperor penguin. The declining sea ice also is bringing forth realization of another problem, is the declining krill stocks. Krill are little tiny crustaceans in the sea ice. They're a big source of food for whales and also the emperor penguin. And there's a big impact even on the krill fishing and krill stocks in the future. Getting a handle on the magnitude of this and the extent of Antarctic climate change is a top priority of scientists. Last century, the sea level rose about 18 centimeters. From up to where my hand is, that's about 18 centimeters. The potential for the implications of this is the humanity that lives along the sea coastal areas. During the past decade, global warming, we're all very aware of it, has become stronger, and so has the rate of the sea level rise. Although it's disputed, there is wide agreement that there is a rise in the sea level. More than 100 million human beings live in coastal areas, and usually they are in developing nations where they are ill-equipped to deal with the problem. Actions on our part of Canadian government and other industrial nations will reduce the impact of the ice sheets and the future ice and the sea level rise on the humans, also the penguins. I can't speak about the penguins without referring to our own polar bears. Canada has 2/3 of the world's polar bears, and the polar bear has become the most visible victim of climate change. I'm sure we've all seen pictures on television, wherever, of the lone polar bear on an ice floe surrounded by kilometers of open water. The female polar bear needs the ice floe as a hunting platform to catch her support for her life when the seal comes up through the hole in the ice. Without that support for herself, she certainly cannot have cubs and raise them to a full adult polar bear. You've heard a lot today about the difficulties and our concerns about global climate change, and I hope this awareness spurs you on to collective action. There's a lot of information on the internet, and there are opportunities for us to make a difference. And I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bonnie. And next we're just going down to Eve's Apple.